Good afternoon, boys and girls. It's time for our read aloud of the BFG. I missed you last week, so it's so nice to be back with you this week. It warms my heart seeing you. Today we have a mystery reader. We're going to kick off the week with the mystery reader. So let's take a look at some clues that we have about our mystery reader. Clue number 1, this person loves to be outside. Oh, can you think of someone that you know? So somebody that you know that loves to be outside. Number 2, this person misses you. Can you think of someone that you know that loves to be outside and that misses you very much? Here we go. Clue number 3. This person will never smoke. I bet you know who it is now. If you guess Teacher Mark, you're right. Let's welcome Teacher Mark. Welcome,
Hi,
Teacher
kids.
Mark.
So nice to see everybody. I miss you guys. I love you guys. Okay, so we get right back into the book, the BFG. Here we go. We're on page 193. The giant gave a roar of pain and jumped high in the air. He dropped the soldier and made a grab for his ankle. The BFG, knowing what a coward Flesh Lump Eater was, saw his chance. "You is bitten by a snake," he shouted. "I seed it biting you. It was a frightsome, poisonous viper. It was a deadly, dangerous windscreen viper." "Save our souls," bellowed the Flesh Lump Eater. "Sound the crumpets. I is bitten by a septitious, venomous windscreen viper." He flopped to the ground and sat there howling his head off and clutching his ankle with both hands. His fingers felt the brooch. "The teeth of the deadly viper is still sticking into me," he yelled. "I is feeling the teeth sticking into my anklet." The BFG saw his second chance. "We must be getting those viper's teeth out at once," he cried. "Otherwise, you is deader than duck soup. I's helping you." The BFG knelt down beside the Flesh Lump Eater. "You must grab your anklet very tight with both hands," he ordered. "That will stop the poisonous juices from the venomous viper going up your leg and into your heart." The Flesh Lump Eater grabbed his ankle with both hands. "Now close your eyes and grittle your teeth and look up to heaven and say your prayers while I is taking out the teeth of the venomous viper," the BFG said. The terrified Flesh Lump Eater did exactly as he was told. The BFG signaled for some rope. A soldier rushed it over to him, with both the Flesh Lump Eater's hands gripping his ankle. It was a simpler matter for the BFG to tie the ankles and hands together with a tight knot. "I is pulling out the frightsome viper's teeth," the BFG said as he pulled the knot tight. "Do it quickly," shouted the Flesh Lump Eater, "before I is poisoned to death." "There we is," said the BFG, standing up. "You can look now." When the Flesh Lump Eater saw that he was trussed up like a turkey, he gave a yell so loud that the heavens trembled. He rolled and he wriggled, he fought and he figgled, he squirmed and he squiggled, but there was not a thing he could do. "Well done, you," Sophie cried. "Well done, you," said the BFG, smiling down at the little girl. "You is saving all of our lives." "Will you please get the brooch back for me?" Sophie said. "It belongs to the queen." The BFG pulled the beautiful brooch out of the Flesh Lump Eater's ankle. The Flesh Lump Eater howled. The BFG wiped the pin and handed it back to Sophie. Curiously, not one of the other 8 snoring giants had woken up during the schmizozel. "When you is only sleeping 1 or 2 hours a day, you is sleeping extra doubly deep," the BFG explained. The heads of the Army and the Air Force drove forward once again in their jeep. Her Majesty will be very pleased with me, the head of the Army said. I shall probably get a medal. What's the next move? Now you is all driving over to my cave to load up my bottle of dreams, the BFG said. We can't waste time with that rubbish, the Army general said. It's the Queen's order, Sophie said. She was now back on the BFG's hand. So the 9 jeeps drove across to the BFG's cave, and the great dream loading operation began. There were 50,000 jars in all to be loaded up, more than 5,000 to each jeep, and it took over an hour to finish the job. While the soldiers were loading the dreams, the BFG and Sophie disappeared over the mountains on a mysterious errand. When they came back, the BFG had a sack the size of a small house slung over his shoulder. What's that you've got in there? The head of the Army demanded to know. Curiosity is killing the rat, the BFG said, and he turned away from the silly man. When he was sure that all his precious dreams had been safely loaded onto the jeeps, the BFG said, Now we is driving back to the Belly Poppers and picking up some fighting giants. The jeeps drove back to the helicopters. The 50,000 dreams were carried carefully, jar by jar, onto the helicopters. The soldiers climbed back on board, but the BFG and Sophie stayed on the ground. Then they all returned to where the 9 giants were lying. It was a fine sight to see them, these great air machines hovering over the trussed-up giants. It was an even finer sight to see the giants being woken up by the terrific thundering of the engines overhead. And the finest sight of all was to observe those 9 hideous brutes squirming and twisting about on the ground like a mass of mighty snakes as they tried to free themselves from their ropes and chains. I is flushbunkled, roared the flesh lump eater. I is spizzle-wiggled, yelled the child chewer. I is swag-walloped, bellowed the bone cruncher. Oh my. I is goose-gruggled, howled the man hugger. I is gun-swiped, shouted the meat dripper. I is flood-gungled, screamed the maid masher. I is slaughter-goggled, squawked Gizzard Gulper. I is crux-squinkled, yelled Blood Blotter. I is Bob Smuggered, screeched the butcher boy. The 9 giant carrying helicopters each chose a separate giant and hovered directly over him. Very strong steel hawsers with hooks on the ends of them were lowered from the front and rear of each helicopter. The BFG quickly secured the hooks to the giant's chains, one hook near the legs and the other near the arms. Then, very slowly, the giants were winched up into the air, parallel with the ground. The giants roared and bellowed, but there was nothing they could do. The BFG, with Sophie once more resting comfortably in his ear, set off at a gallop to England. The helicopters all banked around and followed after him. It was an amazing spectacle, those 9 helicopters winging through the sky, each with a trussed-up 50-foot-long giant slung underneath it. The giants themselves must have found it an interesting experience. They never stopped bellowing, but their howls were drowned out by the noise of the engines. When it began to get dark, the helicopters switched on powerful searchlights and trained them onto the galloping giant so as to keep him in sight. They flew right through the night and arrived in England just as dawn was breaking. The giant gave a roar of pain and jumped high in the air. Oh,
That's it.
that's it. Started over, sorry.
Thank you so much, Teacher Mark.
Yes,
That was
thank
so fun
you.
having you. Are just the most amazing mystery reader. You had voices for everybody. I love it.
Oh, I love to read. It's one of my favorite things to do. Aren't books wonderful?
They're my favorite. They're my absolute favorite. Love reading books. Thank
Well,
you so
thank
much
you
for
so much,
joining us.
Teacher Michelle. Bye,
Thanks,
kids.
Mr. Mark.